Emma and Ines, and we're students from the International School Nido de Águilas located in Santiago, Chile. The purpose of this video is to inform people worldwide of what we researched about the Berlin Wall. Our question specifically informs about what the effect of the Berlin Wall was on the east-west side of Germany during the Cold War. The topics that are going to be talked about in this video are the differences between the two sides, like the government, economic, standards of living, etc.
To start us off, I will be talking about the standards of living in between the East and the West, and they were very distinct. So the Eastern side had many restrictions, just like watching different television channels by the silence of perestroika. It is a political movement for reformation, but it didn't stop from the East German household to be uniformed to avoid necessary protection against the degrading and immoral influences of decadent Western culture and capitalism. They could receive West German television broadcasts, so they were able to follow world news than people in the Eastern Europe. Freedom gave way to fears about vast population shifts, waves of new immigration, insecurity, and digital surveillance, which was also hardly imaginable in the days when the status monitoring of East German phone calls was the state of the art in Spain. Globalization is a topic that changed the view of people since it was promised to make the world smaller, only accelerated the desire of millions of people to distinguish themselves via language, culture, race, or politics.
Government. To begin with, Germany was divided between the west and east side. Berlin was located in the middle, which meant governors in the same or different time. The most important ones are, in 1971, Leonid Brezhnev, from the Soviet leader, then again in 1971, Erich Honecker from the GDR, German Democratic Republic, representing the East Germany. Then, in 1990, Mikhail Gorbachev from the Soviet Union.
Germany was a country with a lot of industrialization and natural resources. Some of the resources that they had was coal, lignite, natural gas, iron ore, copper, nickel, and uranium.
Industrial environment and urbanization. So people from the east side were going to the west. But also, the Soviet Union didn't touch the east side since they had an advanced technology and subtle living standards.
Ideology, capitalism, and socialism. The reason why the East and the West were fighting was because of their disagreement. The West side were capitalists and the East side were communists. The moment when the wall fame became known across the world as the historic moment when the West defeated the Soviet Union and capitalism formula defeated communism. The people had peacefully overthrown the actually existing socialism and returned to capitalism. Economy. The East Side's economy was so bad compared to the West that people were constantly trying to escape over the wall, causing the death of 244 people. This caused the East population to shrink heavily. In 1961, the economy of the East Germany went to the worst place possible. Since there isn't a lot of people to work, there was no one to produce the natural resources to grow the economy of the country.
Politics. Since Berlin is still a work in progress, people in Germany wanted to distinguish themselves via politics. This massive migration, which had already cost East Germany a fifth of its population, had a significant geopolitical impact. It threatened the legitimacy of the GDR. A reduction of East Germans' already low living standards by 30% would be needed and was politically unthinkable. Growth was negative. The current 5-year plan unfulfillable. Massive, uncontrollable demonstrations continued with waves of refugees fleeing the country. Back in the 1960s, political sociologist Rolf Dahrendorf called East Germany the first modern society of German soil, in which the comrade was already won the day and the new society was complete. Dahrendorf argued that East German society had become coordinated through the privileging of positive social rights over negative freedoms, the political direction of education, and the elimination of intermediate ties and inherited loyalties. Dahrendorf regarded these changes as irreversible, and although this has proved not to be the case, the residual impact of communist social reforms on the political dimensions of the unification process was profound. From very early on in the process, it became clear that East Germans were strangely decoupled from the institutions and practices of the new unified Germany. Some of this disconnect was cognitive, which made it hard for elites to cultivate engagement with their new citizens, and some of it was down to a sense of colonization, in which the institutions of civil society were not indigenous, but rather imported from the old West Germany and imposed upon the East. East Germans were different from their West German fellow citizens. Research carried out in the 1990s showed that East Germans were far more likely, 42.2% of the population, to be manual workers than were West Germans, 35.9%, and far less likely to be self-employed, 6.5%, compared with 9.2%. Conversely, there were significantly lower levels of civil servants, 2%, and the self-employed, 6.5%, than in the Old West Germany, 7.9% and 9.2%. Moreover, although the former German Democratic Republic had traditionally been a Protestant heartland, East Germans were far less likely, 25% of the total population, to self-report as Protestant than were their West German fellow citizens, 43%, much more likely to claim no religious affiliation at all, 69% compared with 17%, while 40% of West Germans self-reported as Catholics, the traditional bedrock of West German Christian democracy. Only 6% of East Germans did so.
Role of individual. The leader of the West Side was named Ronald Reagan. Reagan was well recognized for winning the Cold War. He was born a peasant but started to study law in an early age, and in 1952 he became the official governor of the Communists.
In conclusion, we would like to add that the Berlin Wall affected or helped in many different aspects. For example, it helped to have a free South Africa. So South Africa apartheid regime made the decision to release Nelson Mandela, revoking the ban of his African National Congress, and negotiated a transition to democratic majority rule was announced 2 months after the fall of the Berlin Wall. And the events are intimately connected. Because Ronald Reagan's administration protected Pretoria from sections because the white minority government had been a Cold War ally, and Mandela's ANC was perceived as a friend of Moscow. But with the Cold War winding down, Washington no longer its anti-communist in Pretoria, and President Frederick Willem de Klerk read the writing on the wall and opted to negotiate from a position of relative strength, opening the way to a peaceful end to apartheid. We would like to thank you for taking your time to watch our video. We hope you liked it and learned from it.